An account we don't talk enough about, although some of us have gotten her attention over the years, is Star Wars Meg. And now she has put out a video on the latest writer for the Rey movie being good news, among other news. Let's dive into the first topic in her video and expose her for the fraud and shill she is. I will start out with the praise she is heaping on Disney Lucasfilm's choice to hire George Nolfi as writer for the Rey movie.
And for a movie which I really wasn't too excited about, it sounds like this guy has the right approach. Music to my ears.
So she likes the decision, but before we get into why, what's going on with the Rey movie director?
With all of the juggling round going on at Lucasfilm, they do confirm that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy is still the director.
I enjoy making men uncomfortable.
Oh, we're off to a great start here. Meg wants George Nolfi to be the latest writer for the Rey movie, but apparently doesn't have an issue with shithead Sharmeen being director. Maybe Nolfi's qualifications outweigh the director's feminist toxicity. Let's check it out.
And the one thing he says that is very reassuring is it needs to honor the long, incredible Star Wars tradition. Music to my ears. And because he's got a background in philosophy, he notes, the most beautiful thing about George Lucas's vision is you can raise the deepest issues without it feeling like a philosophy class.
Okay, check the box for honoring George cliché. What else, Meg?
He says, if you think about George Lucas, the 6 movies that he did, and the universe he created, it's actually very steeped in broad notions of politics.
Now that's really interesting. It reminded me of something, so I ran a quick search. June of 2021, AV Club interviewed Leslie Headland, acolyte queen bitch of the universe, or whatever her title was. What did she say at the time? We're all just following in George's footsteps. He is such a deep worshiper of film, and not just the medium of film, but the history of film and the way film has been used, and all the different genres that he infused the original trilogy with is something that only he can do. He was such a believer of film as tone poem that it only makes sense that people who are doing their own side stories or their own series or their own standalones. So obviously telling people what they wanted to hear about George at the time, almost 3 years before The Acolyte debuted. And then what else does she say in the same interview? Don't make Star Wars political. I'm like, George Lucas made it political. Those are political films. War is, by nature, political. That's just what's up.
I am the type of Star Wars fan that doesn't even have a favorite movie.
Honoring George, and George's Star Wars was political in the same breath. Yet Nolfi also said he'd be looking at what Disney Lucasfilm and shithead Sharmeen want to do.
And he responded with this, the way I approach it, you look at what's come before you, you look at the broad ideas of what they want to do. He's talking about Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, Lucasfilm, Disney.
Did Leslie wind up honoring George? These shills never learn. Next, Meg has some news for us on the Disney Lucasfilm executive front.
Rain Roberts, Lucasfilm Vice President of Live Action Development, a creative executive and story group member who spearheaded The Acolyte, has just been replaced, and she's been replaced by Derek Hoffman, the new Vice President of Development. So I'm personally very much on board with this.
Star Wars Meg, liking the replacement of a black woman of color. So toxic.
Are you a racist?
Then it must have been a slow news week because she goes for the cheap KK is leaving angle. Let's listen to this.
This might be an overly discussed topic, but there have been some signs Kathleen Kennedy might retire soon. Fans noticed that twice in quick succession, out of the blue, she's been honoured with several awards.
KK winning awards? That's never happened before.
Who knows, she might renew her contract again.
Meg's version of let's take it with a grain of salt. What do we call her? WW Meg? Megcock? Meg Pasha? Lastly, she wraps things up with some hardcore furry defense, confirming her status as FIloni Faithful.
For her performance in Ahsoka, Rosario Dawson won the Saturn Award for Best Actress. I know there's been a lot of criticism about the directing, that she was way too stoic, and I figure it's just the vibe Dave Filoni was going for. He wanted her to be this stoic, mentor, emotionless, balanced Jedi type. Go back and rewatch any episode of Ahsoka and imagine it animated in the style of Rebels. It works so much better, and at the very minimum, you can imagine the kind of tone Dave Filoni was going for. But some fans to this day say he's better in animation, live action isn't his medium, but that is very subjective.
That's some deep, cult-like behavior, Megcock.
So I'm immediately thinking, like, this is the SpongeBob guys.
There is help out there. There is a hotline. We'll put it up on the screen here. Call in for the help to stop being a shill.